Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're talking about Rey Mysterio. And as you may have noticed from the name of the thumbnail, we're going to talk about his unmatched greatness and how there's only one Rey Mysterio and he's one of one ever. And what really started me thinking about this is we get into this conversation every couple years. There's a new Rey Mysterio, and I get it, it's a trope. It goes through sports, it goes through movies, it goes through everything. I probably said on my videos myself, 7 different wrestlers are the next Rey Mysterio, because it's easy to compare. Like, let's say, for instance, when LeBron James came in the NBA, they compared him to Michael Jordan. Every year when you watch a sports draft, they have a comparison, whether it be the NBA, the NFL, NHL. They'll say, this guy reminds me of so-and-so. So I understand that. But here's what made me think of making this video. There really is no comparison to Rey Mysterio. For what he has done and what he means to pro wrestling, there's never going to be another person like him. And we'll start off with where I first seen Mysterio. Now, not including wrestling magazines, which obviously I would have seen pictures before this. He was wrestling since, I believe, 1989, since he was like 14 years old. But when I first seen Mysterio was in ECW around 1995, when him and Psychosis came in and they had matches that people in America never seen. You gotta remember, this was a time where the internet wasn't what it is now. You couldn't hop on and watch AAA matches or CMLL matches. You knew Lucha Libre might exist if you were a wrestling fan, but you didn't really see it. And here comes these two guys with this lucha style mixed with what ECW was doing and really gave us something brand new. This would kind of be like if your whole life the only ice creams you had were vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, here comes Rocky Road. And you're like, whoa, what is this? Why is this? How are they doing that? A lot of that just isn't the moves. It's the personalities. It's the guy behind the moves. Both of them. Both Mysterio and Psychosis, who's a fantastic wrestler that doesn't quite get what he deserves either. They kind of ushered in this new style. Now with that, they were almost immediately brought to WCW, which, if you remember WCW, they helped that cruiserweight division, which to a lot of people was the highlights of WCW. You had these amazing cruiserweight matches, and then the big name stars would have the main event matches. But you had guys there like Mysterio, Psychosis, Juventud Guerrera, who was a rivalry back all the way through their AAA days and was another guy that came through ECW as well. Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, who again, both came through ECW. And of the group, Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero were the two guys that I think, whether they were wrestling with each other or against each other, made the most cultural impact. I mean, when we look back at WCW, one of the great WCW matches of all time is Halloween Havoc 1997, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. And I know most of you guys have seen this match. This was the match where he's wearing all purple, Rey that is. And this set off just their fantastic rivalry, their fantastic matches together, and really set the bar on two guys that were going to have amazing Hall of Fame legendary careers. Now, almost immediately, we started hearing, as soon as Rey Mysterio became famous, got big, we started hearing about who's going to be the next Rey Mysterio, who's going to carry the torch. And the first person that I really remember getting that name put to him was a guy named Blitzkrieg, which if you were watching WCW in 99-2000, you may remember. You may look back fondly on. I definitely do. I thought Blitzkrieg was an amazing talent. And there was something there. He had charisma, he could wrestle. I mean, he was just as good at the high-flying moves as Mysterio, Psychosis, Juventud, Ultimo Dragon, all the guys that were already there. But as you can see, Blitzkrieg didn't quite last that long. He decided to give up wrestling, I think, just a couple of years later. So he didn't quite have the staying power as Mysterio. We're going back to my original topic, that Rey Mysterio can't be duplicated. Now fast forward a little bit, the next guy, and probably the person I think that's come closest to being the next Rey Mysterio, was Ricochet. And Ricochet, to me, fantastic wrestler, amazing accolades, amazing matches all around the globe, innovative high flyer, much like Rey Mysterio, has the charisma, but there's just that one little thing that Ricochet doesn't have that Mysterio does. And I'm not saying Ricochet's terrible. I love Ricochet. Ricochet, to me, he doesn't reach as many fans as Rey does. Rey is someone that every fan loves, that whether you like the flippy style, whether you like the masks, whether you like the psychology, everybody loves Rey Mysterio. So again, here we have another guy that's compared but didn't quite live up. And no disrespect to any of these people we're bringing up. And this is even something that's going on today, where I've heard Dragon Lee is going to be the next Rey Mysterio, and Dragon Lee is fantastic. I love watching him wrestle, and he does remind me a lot of times of a young Rey Mysterio. But again, I think there's that something there what Mysterio had that's missing with Dragon Lee. And that's what I'm going to talk about mostly, and that's why I bring these three guys up as examples. Because they were all great in their own way, but Mysterio had extra intangibles that none of these guys had. First, we got to talk about the cultural impact. Much like I said a little bit earlier, prior to Mysterio and the Cruiserweights in WCW, and Eddie Guerrero, and Conan as well. Conan had a big hand in this. Lucha Libre in the USA was something we heard about, and we may get the occasional Mil Mascaras match, or some wrestler in a mask who was claimed to be a luchador but really wasn't, like the Conquistadors. But they never really did much of the lucha style, or to put it better, the 90s lucha style, until we seen Rey in Psychosis. And that is where I think he stands out. Rey was a first real lucha star to cross over. This would be akin to like the Beatles in rock music. Sure, there were other rock musicians at the time, there have been others since, but no one's quite been the Beatles, and no one's quite had the impact. And that's where I think Rey and Eddie Guerrero, Eddie on the same plane, I think Rey and Eddie both helped push Lucha Libre and Hispanic, Latino wrestlers into the forefront in a culture where instead of being stereotypical, they were honored for their differences. Instead of like a decade before, you may see someone like even Eddie's brothers who had to wear stereotypical, let's face it, quasi-racist wrestling attire when they wrestled in America, whether it be a sombrero or the bandolier of bullets. They really broke through that stigma. And another thing that I think Rey has that most wrestlers don't is that ultimate underdog mentality. Now, yes, a lot of the wrestlers I mentioned and a lot of people that get compared to Rey are undersized or small people. However, when you go back and you watch Rey's career and you watch him against a guy like Batista, The Undertaker, Kane, The Big Show, Kevin Nash, you always felt like Rey had a chance to beat these big guys because Rey had intangibles. He made you believe in him. He made you think that there was something that he could do that no one else in the world could. And that's true because there were things that Rey can do, and there still are, that no one in the world can do. Rey, to me, is the ultimate fight from behind guy, the ultimate guy, the David to the Goliath for any of those stories, the giant killer, the guy that even if he was against a great Khali who outweighs him by over 200 pounds and is almost 2 feet taller than him, he would find a way to beat him. And if you think back and you look at it and you hear all these things about who someone like a Vince McMahon would love as their top star, you always hear he loves size, he loves big men. Think of all the accolades that Rey Mysterio's had in his WWE run. He's been the world champion, he's been the heavyweight champion, he's been tag champion multiple times, intercontinental champion, won a Royal Rumble. He's done stuff that a lot of the quintessential Vince McMahon style wrestlers could not achieve. He's reached those brass rings, those things that we always hear of. And it's because of that, because of his connection. And that's the ultimate thing that I think Rey Mysterio has that any of the next Rey Mysterios or anyone that's been ever compared to him doesn't really have. Rey Mysterio has a connection with his fans that most wrestlers can only dream of. Whether it be when he comes down in the ring and he grabs a young fan and he puts his forehead up against their forehead and gives them a mask, or just his theme music, or him jumping out of the stage, or doing some insane moves, or the family drama with his son Dominic. He always had a way to draw you in. His humbleness, his heart, his character. Rey was always portrayed as the ultimate good guy, and yes, there were a couple times in his career where he was quasi-heel, but to me, he was always a guy that had that connection that very few other wrestlers have. I mean, this is something you see with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Eddie Guerrero. Eddie and Rey have a lot of similarities and a lot of that same push at the same time. But in conclusion, I want to go back to what I initially said. The reason I made this video is we always compare people to Rey Mysterio. And I know why we do it, and I think it's unfair because it's going to be impossible to be the next Rey Mysterio. There's only ever going to be one Rey Mysterio. And I know he's Rey Mysterio Jr. and there's been more people with the name, but you understand what I mean. Just like there's only ever going to be one Stone Cold, there's only ever going to be one John Cena, there's only ever going to be one Ric Flair, there's only ever going to be one Sting. You have wrestlers that may have copied them or took some inspiration from them, but you'll never have another version of them or someone that's equal to them because they're all one of a kind. And that's what makes Rey Mysterio so special. That's what makes his career so special. That's why for over 30 years now, as wrestling fans, we've been behind Rey Mysterio and we want to see him succeed. One of the great wrestlers of all time, one of the guys that really brought Lucha Libre into the forefront in America and brought Latinos and Hispanic wrestlers to the forefront in America. Just a fantastic talent, hence why I wanted to make this video. And if you made it here to the end, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you see where it says join, that's how you become a channel member. Becoming a channel member would really help out. With all that being said, if you made it here to the end, leave me your favorite Rey Mysterio moment, whether it be a match, a promo, an angle he did. Leave it down here in the comments. My name is George Coles, and this has been another Heel Heat video.